So, in regards to school, like, were you really into school?
I despised school. I still despise school. And you never graduate dream school. So you're always there. I didn't get along with the kids, most of the kids in my school. I was from a small town. I had a class of 100 people. I think 99 graduated. But I was the hip hop kid before that really was a thing in white neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me a pariah in a lot of ways. And I wasn't just the hip hop kid. I was the pro black kid. I was the pro black liberation, Public Enemy, X-Clan kid, King's son, a poor righteous teacher's kid. It's just like, it wasn't Will Smith and it wasn't just Run DMC. I was bringing a lot of shit to the table and having an identity crisis probably, but I loved what hip hop was teaching me that I wasn't getting at school. It just felt more real, felt more accurate.
It spoke to your soul more.
It really did. It really did. I tend to, I don't know, gravitate toward the stories of the disenfranchised rather than repeat the stories of colonizers. And that made me a weirdo where I was from. But I didn't get bullied again because they knew I had hands and feet. And I was big for my age, even though I was like one of the youngest kids in my class. I was very big for my age and I was muscular for my age. They had me playing on the senior football team when I was in 9th grade. It was like the varsity team. So, I mean, I just had a reputation of, all right, this dude is weird, but don't fuck with this cat. And don't make fun of rap around him. And definitely don't say anything racist.
So at that time, you're talking what, the 80s?
This was, I would say, the early 90s, 90, 91, 92. Okay. The late 80s is when my first concert was in 88 with Run DMC, Public Enemy, EPMD, DJ Jazzy Jeff, and the Fresh Prince. So, I had just started getting into things that weren't readily available. Like there was a Fat Boys tape floating around my school. Fresh Prince was on the radio. Supersonic was hot on the radio, but this was the fad era of hip hop where everyone was like, it's just a fad. It'll go away. Like people aren't going to keep going to YMCA to take breakdancing lessons. And that was true. But this is when I learned there was something under the surface of all that. And my exploration into that was seminal. And thank God there was college radio where I lived. So I could get Boston College Radio and Rhode Island College Radio. And about once a week, both of those stations would have a hip hop show where they play Rakim and KRS, and I taped all those shows. I listened to them on repeat because this is not a time where you could go to a store and go to a hip hop section for a tape. There was no hip hop section at the store. There was like, you had to search through everything and try to like find something that looked like it was hip hop. The one like big score I had was I got the Too Short, Life is Too Short tape.
Right.
And because it said R.I.P. Sucker MC, I was like, this is definitely hip hop. And he has big gold chains. And, but sometimes you'd get a stinker or some R&B bullshit. It was really frustrating. So to this day, I kind of hate R&B.
I've seen the tweets. I've seen the tweets. You complain about it. You're like, home of hip hop and R&B. You're like, get the fuck out of here. You're like, I just want a hip hop station. That's it.
Why does every mainstream radio station have to couple R&B with hip hop? Always. It's always coupled. It's like, that's not, to me, in the essence and spirit of it all, that's not the same thing. And it's not, I love one and hate the other. So stop mixing them together. But what's funny about that is the first guy who ever made me a beat and the first guy I ever recorded with, his name is DJ Buck. This was in 92. And back then he had a show in Rhode Island and he played like dope hip hop. But now he is a DJ at one of the hot stations in Connecticut, like the big home of hip hop and R&B station. And he hit me up after I made that tweet, and I hadn't heard from him since 92.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So he was like, yo, I was like, is this really Sage? Oh shit. He was like, yo, let's get on a phone call. So the next day, he called me up. He was like, yeah, man. He was like, he kind of seemed like kind of embarrassed. He was like, oh man, just got to get a paycheck, man. It was like, I got to do the hot radio stuff. You know how it is. I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not blaming you. Get your check. I mean, you've been in this game forever. You deserve all this and more. But we went on a trip down memory lane where I was like, reminding him of certain stuff. Cause that was back when I was one of maybe 2 white kids in a crowd in Providence who was rapping. And I was rapping fast, like Chip Fu. I was like doing my Fushnikins thing because, like if I was, you're going to get disrespected as a white MC right off the bat when you step to a stage at a hip hop event back in those days. So I wanted right off the bat to, wow the crowd, because no one was doing that in our area. And and it works. Like, it's like, oh, all right, you got our ear. Now, what else do you got? But it
almost like punch them in the mouth, right?
Like, yeah. You just razzle dazzle right away. It's like, I'm not the ordinary white kid from the suburbs. So that got me in with a few people, including Buck. And yeah, I mean, I got a lot of stories about that, but that was the early era of me finally getting outside of my hometown, traveling to South Providence, inserting myself into their events where I was a stranger and an outsider and not welcomed, but I continued to do it. And it caught some people's eyes and ears. I ended up getting a quote unquote manager from it. Shout out to Larry Tucker, who I was 14 years old. This black dude who was dealing with a lot of stuff, which I would come to learn later. But the first time I met him, like, he pulled out a gun on someone. I don't even know why he did that. It was at the end of the event, end of the block party. And I like this 14-year-old white kid going up to a hood dude. And I was like, yo, you should never do that. don't ever do that again. So he went and met my parents because he wanted to talk to them about managing me as a rapper. Cause he saw the potential. Is like, all right, this is like, this is the crisscross era. This is where young kids are getting on, especially if they have like a special skill or they could rap fast. And, he just had no idea how the industry works. So that was a total waste of time, but it was good. He did connect me with DJ Buck, and Buck gave me a solid beat, and it started giving me an idea of how things are done. Cause up until then I was totally faking it in my bedroom with my tape recorder and my boombox and playing the beat from the boombox, put my head between the boombox and the tape and rap verses over, pause tape instrumentals that I would make from beats that, a rap song toward the end or in the beginning wouldn't have any rapping on it. Yeah. So I would just loop that, and that's what I would rap over. So this was leveling up for me.
Cause you started writing and recording at 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
So when you first started writing, was it just poetry at first, or you were immediately writing rhymes already?
No, it was rhymes. I had no interest in poetry, not until college. I just liked the braggadocio. I liked the tough guy rhymes. I liked the sex stories. Like the silly stuff, the goofy stuff, the violent stuff, anything that you would enjoy in the 80s from an action movie. That's what I liked from hip hop. You're
looking at it from an auditory kind of standpoint, obviously, because you're hearing the stories, instead of like visually watching it.
Right. Yeah. And it was almost catered to me. It catered to my age group in a weird way. So that's what I did. That's what I emulated. So I still have a lot of recordings of me sounding like Too Short. I actually have a song where I'm doing Too Short's accent, which I didn't even know where it came from at that point in my life. But, trying to do Run DMC styles, trying to do Slick Rick styles, Beastie Boys eventually, until I finally started to figure out my own way and my own voice. And that was a long journey. And that is a long journey for almost any artist. But when you start off young and impressionable like that, you want to sound like your heroes. You want to feel like you fit in because you're like them. And then eventually you learn you contribute by just being yourself and sounding like yourself. If you can develop that voice and, contribute to the culture in that way.
So at 8 years old, what kind of rhymes are you writing? Do you remember any of the rhymes?
Yeah. So one of them was, I said this to my grandmother at a sushi restaurant. Well, it was a Japanese restaurant. I remember her being appalled. It's a core memory for me. So I wanted to show off my rhyme. I said, my name is Ace and I can rock the place. And if you come any closer, I'll rearrange your face. And she went, oh.
Was at 8?
Yeah.
You said this?
Yeah. And, I may have totally stolen that from somebody. I don't know I don't know what 8-year-olds talking about rearranging a face, but that was the rhyme that I kicked. And I know I had more to it. I probably actually still have the lyric sheet that I wrote it on. I saved all the lyrics from all the years. So
why Ace? Was that the first rap name that you came up with?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's cool. What's a cool name? Ace. I'd gone through 10 names probably over the course of 10 years.
That's insane. Cause you went from you were Strange Famous at one time too, and Zalzan, right?
Yeah, well, those are alter egos.
Egos.
Yeah.
But then what were some of the other names that you went with?
So before Sage Francis, it was Sage, just Sage. And I came to realize, okay, well, this is too generic. I need to differentiate myself more from other people who are going to call themselves Sage. Before Sage, it was Hostile. And I came to learn there was another Hostile. But also I didn't like the name because you can read it as Ho-Style.
Right. And
I was like, all right, I'm better off getting rid of this. So before that, I mean, I don't know why. One of my earlier names was D-Rip. I think because I had a shirt that was a big D and I pretended it was my merch shirt. But that was when I was very young. I had another name called, Hostile the QT Wonder. And it was one long acronym because back in the Ed OG and the Bulldog days,
right,
when they were popping off, everyone in our area was rocking acronyms for their crew and with their name. It's like everything had a deep meaning because I remember the QT part of my name was quick tongued. I don't remember what the rest of the letters stood for, but yeah, nothing really felt right. I just didn't want to be called MC Paul.
For sure. So with you starting out just so early on, were you just doing it as a hobby or you knew already, I want to do this for the rest of my life type of thing?
Well, yeah, it did obviously start off as a hobby being so young. And, kids are like that. If they enjoy something, they want to involve themselves and figure it out. I just never stopped doing that. But I remember when I was 12, I went to an underage dance club where they had talent contest.
When you're sneaking out of the house, right, to go battle rap?
Yeah, well, this was before that. This was 2 years before that. So I had a friend drive me, and it's weird. We had underage dance clubs, and there was a wet t-shirt contest there, and it's things were not proper in Rhode Island. Things were really not on the level. But I ended up winning that contest, winning a t-shirt, and the radio DJ signed it for me. And I can remember that night I dedicated myself because I felt so good. I kind of cuddled with the shirt and I had dreams of rocking stadiums. I'm I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. But then by the time I turned 15 and I hadn't been discovered yet, and I don't really know what that would entail, I kind of like felt deflated, like I had missed my window and I was getting too old to really like make an impact or be a novelty. That's because I think I was banking on being a novelty, you know, like Crisscross was.
Right.
And I missed that window. So I think by that time that's when I started developing my voice that you can probably trace to what I do now. I started writing more introspective stuff, and I started telling my story, and I started using hip hop as therapy. I started really talking about things that upset me or disturbed me or made me sad. And it wasn't bragging anymore. You know, it was, taking it more seriously, and not as much stuff as I'd want to share with people. Cause I was just exploring that pathway. And,
yeah, I've heard you say in the past that like the more personal stuff was what you kept to yourself, like for your own, like, I guess, listening, right? Like the more, I guess, braggadocious rhymes are the ones that you would play for people more.
Yeah. Cause that was the community. That was, you know, the ciphers coming in with punchlines, making people laugh, or, just doing that style. That was what was popular. And if you did anything else, you know, you weren't taken seriously. But I was talking about, so what's funny is even when I was in junior high, I had written a song that eventually turned into a song that ended up on my first 12-inch in 1999 called I Keep Calling. And that's when I learned how to be more abstract in my writing and how to utilize metaphor over simile. Because punchline rap is a lot of similes. It's a lot of blah, 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 like boo, boo, boo. Or you're as nasty as blah, blah, blah. But metaphor is like you level up with the metaphors and you can be more playful with metaphors. And so I guess I obsessed over that for a bit. And when I was my first year of college, I was writing a lot. And this is when I first got exposed to spoken word poetry through a woman named Patricia Smith, who put on a show for our college. And it was just her, no music, no nothing, just her voice, her stories, her poetry. And it enthralled me. It gave me the same feeling that hip hop first gave me. And I was amazed. And I went up to her after the performance, just so inspired. And I told her, I said, hey, I want you to know, I'm going to do what you're doing right now. I'm going to do this. And she was like, oh yeah, good. And then 3 years later, we're on the same flight to Austin, Texas to perform in the National Poetry Slam competition. I was representing Providence. She was representing Boston. And we became friends in a way. But I reminded her of that story. I'm like, you really are the one who set this off for me, because I never knew there could be so much power in vulnerability. Hip hop disguises that in various ways. But what she was doing was she was putting her vulnerability out in the open and working with it and making us feel it in a way that we didn't look at her as weak. We looked at her as strong, looked at her as powerful. And that's the strength of good writing. So that's when I'm like, I really gotta work on my craft, my craft of writing. Like this is a magical thing. This is not something, to take for granted. If you have the ability to do it and you have the ability to grow it, you help yourself and you can also help others in the process. So, and I also noticed that there was a big gap in the playing field in hip hop, because they weren't doing that in hip hop. It was pretty much frowned upon, or you'd be looked at as gay, you know, like.
Right. It's the overly machismo kind of rhymes are more acceptable.
Right.
Like the mental health awareness wasn't at an all-time high yet, right? That wasn't like a popular thing. So early on, like you were able to I guess be introspective with inside of your feelings, be aware of those things and cognizantly put that out.
Yeah. Even though I didn't really think there was an audience for it, but I saw an open path that I could take. And so I started developing that voice, which I don't even think was fully developed until my first solo studio album, which was Personal Journals, which we just celebrated the 25th anniversary of, or 24th, whatever the case. At first I would go to these open mic readings. It wasn't involved with slamming yet. It was poetry readings. And I would go up there and just do my verses a cappella. So I wasn't writing. It was all rhyming. I was still rhyming, but it was very intricate, and it was best for it not to be over a beat so that the people could actually hear what I was saying. They could connect the dots in my topics and what was what. And then I gradually started to write stuff that wasn't rhyming, because I do feel in my heart of hearts the best poetry doesn't rhyme. But my love and my heart is in hip hop and rhyming. So I try to combine the two.
So speaking of rhyming, we know that you are influenced by Public Enemy, Run DMC, right? But I've also heard you say that your mom is the one that taught you how to rhyme.
My mom likes me to say that she taught me to rhyme. I mean, sure. I mean, don't all parents teach their kids to rhyme? Right?
I mean,
I never went out of my way to teach my son how to rhyme, but he's like, hat and bat. Dad, does that rhyme? I'm like, yeah. And then I would start rattling off more words. And then, yeah, so she liked to play rhyming games with me. I do remember that. I don't think that made me an ill lyricist, and I don't think that helped me with actually good rhymes, but, yeah, that's a whole other topic, because you talk about how elevated rhyming became from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s. It became a whole different game. It's just like the way you rhyme, how many things you rhyme, where they rhyme.
Rhyming, right?
Yeah. And not, like not just rhyming for rhyme's sake. Like you can tell when a rapper does that, and you listen to older hip hop, is like, that's a filler line he used because he had to say the next thing. So
people, if you don't lose the message and you still can do the multi-syllable rhyming, now that is like the, chef's kiss. Basically.
It is. It really is. If you can do that and make it sound incidental, like you didn't purposely do that, it just kind of fell that way.
Yeah.
That is a magical thing. That is something I chase in my writing. And I always look out for. It's just things float in my head, and sometimes I capture them. I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting combination of words that also make sense and rhyme. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Let's save that one.
For sure.